series. I'm Liam Feasey. I'm the Client Services Manager at Lextox, and I'll be delivering today's session on testing for psychoactive substances and what you need to know. In today's session, I'm going to give a background behind psychoactive substances. So I'll explain what a psychoactive substance is, go through some of the common street names, and then talk about the Psychoactive Substances Act. We'll then move on to hair drug testing and the benefits of using hair analysis for the detection of psychoactive substances. We'll then cover what we can actually test for, and then the sample collections process. Okay, so psychoactive substances were previously referred to as legal highs. And these are substances of abuse that have been manufactured to mimic the effects of illegal drugs such as cocaine and ecstasy. These substances are often marketed as research chemicals, bath salts, or not for human consumption. So whilst psychoactive substances can mimic the effects of illegal drugs, they will not produce a false positive for illegal drugs. And that's because the test that is undertaken at Lextox is very sensitive and specific. So if we see that substance, it can only be that substance and it can't be anything else. Spice is a group of synthetic cannabinoids which are usually sprayed onto plant material or natural herbs and mimic the effects of cannabis. Again, these compounds will not produce a positive result for constituents and metabolites within the cannabis drug group. And spice is often marketed as herbal incense or herbal smoking blends. First reported in 2009, psychoactive substances have become a truly global issue. As of the 26th of May 2016, psychoactive substances are now controlled under the Psychoactive Substance Act in the UK, and spice is controlled under the Misuse of Drugs Act. The Psychoactive Substances Act makes it an offence to produce, supply, offer or possess with intent to supply. That is, any substance intended for human consumption that is capable of producing a psychoactive effect, which is not already regulated by the Misuse of Drugs Act. The Act excludes legitimate substances such as food, alcohol, tobacco, nicotine, caffeine, and medical products, as well as controlled drugs, which continue to be regulated by the Misuse of Drugs Act. The Psychoactive Substances Act provides powers to stop and search persons, vehicles, and vessels, enter and search premises in accordance with a warrant, and to seize and destroy psychoactive substances. Figures published by the Ministry of Justice show 26 people were convicted under psychoactive substances laws in the first 6 months since they were introduced. It followed almost 500 arrests over the same period following a ban on new drugs like spice. The 2017 Panorama report provides evidence that the Act has improved the problem across some areas of the UK. However, the same report shows that psychoactive substances are still readily available, with Britain continuing to have the largest legal highs market in any country in Europe. So here are some of the common street names that psychoactive substances may go by or are purchased as. Now this list isn't exhaustive. And when we undertake the test for psychoactive substances, we're actually looking for the individual chemical, not the actual brand name itself. And that's because the brand name can change and the contents within each brand can vary from supplier to supplier. And the brand itself can vary in terms of the substances it actually contains in various different combinations and purities. So there are many different ways in which psychoactive substances can be detected, i.e. using blood, urine, or fluid, and hair analysis. And today's session will be focusing on the benefits of using hair testing for the detection of psychoactive substances. So hair testing can show use over a period of time. So we apply the principle that scalp hair grows at an average rate of approximately 1 centimetre per 1 month. Now this is in accordance with the guidelines of the Society of Hair Testing. So the time period that a scalp hair sample can cover is dependent on the length of the hair that is available. If an individual has approximately 12 centimeters of scalp hair, then hair tests could cover the past approximate 12 months history of an individual's substance use. Now, a month-by-month analysis will section the hair into individual approximate 1 month sections, covering the length of the hair that requires analysis. Now, this is useful if you need to obtain a trend in substance use over a period of time, i.e. to see if the use is increasing, decreasing, or intermittent. An overview analysis will look at the 3 months analysis as a whole and actually provide an approximate period over the whole 3 months. So this is beneficial if you only need to obtain a general indication of substance use within the 3 month period, and can be beneficial if there are cost constraints associated with the case. And hair analysis is fast. So a case-specific quotation can be issued to you the same day as receiving your request, and a sample collection appointment can be arranged immediately, and usually the sample can be collected within 48 hours. Once the sample is received at our laboratory, the sample is then sectioned into the required section lengths, i.e. a 1-3 centimeter section covering an overview analysis, or multiple 1 centimeter sections to provide the month-by-month analysis. Each individual section is then washed prior to analysis to remove any traces of substances on the outside of the hair. The hair is then liquefied into a solution, and the samples are analysed using LC-MS-MS to obtain a concentration value of the substance detected in that section of hair. The results are reviewed and interpreted. The report is then prepared and peer-reviewed and emailed directly to you. So the whole process takes on average 6 working days from receipt of the sample at our laboratory. And hair analysis is reliable. The test Lextox used to analyze hair samples for drugs and psychoactive substances is liquid chromatography with tandem mass spectrometry. So this is a very sensitive and specific technique. So when, for example, we detect a psychoactive substance such as MDAT, it can only be MDAT and not any other substance. Any prescription medication would not provide a positive result for psychoactive substances or illegal drugs. So this is a list of the 39 different psychoactive substances we can detect in hair. Now, these are the most commonly used substances which can be found in the product or drug used. When we undertake a test for psychoactive substances, we automatically look for all 39 of those compounds. We wouldn't have to request a specific substance within that group. We'd automatically test for all 39. And that's similar with the spice analysis. We look for 10 spice compounds, and again, we would look for all of those 10 compounds when we undertake the analysis. Okay, so the sample collection process. Our professionally trained sample collectors are able to collect scalp hair samples at an appointment convenient to you and the donor. If there's no scalp hair available, our collectors can collect body hair as an alternative. In order to detect trace amounts of substances in the hair, we need to collect approximately 100 hairs. So this is approximately the width of a pencil. And we will collect 2 samples, and we cut the hair as close to the scalp as possible. The amount of hair that is collected is unlikely to leave any considerable cosmetic mark to the donor. Now, it takes approximately 2 weeks for hair to grow sufficiently above the scalp for inclusion in a cut sample. So this means that it takes approximately 2 weeks for any drug that has been ingested to be detected in the hair. So this is to allow sufficient time for the drug to be incorporated into the hair itself, and for the hair to grow sufficient length out of the scalp or the body to be included in that analysis. So if you're looking to cover a particular time period, for example, the whole of September, we would need to collect the sample in the middle of October, because we take approximately 14 days off the sample collection date. As I said, if there's no scalp hair, our collectors are able to collect body hair, and the analysis of body hair is still as sensitive and as accurate as that of scalp hair. The difference is that the time period associated with a body hair sample is more approximate, and that's because with body hair, it has a different growth cycle to that of scalp hair. So with body hair has a greater proportion of hair in the resting or non-growing phase. So about 50% of the hair is resting or non-growing. So this means that we have to consider this hair in the calculations of the time period covered by the body hair sample. So generally, a body hair sample will cover between 4 and 18 months. We'll only be able to provide the approximate time period of the body hair sample once we've received it into our laboratory. Body hair can only be analysed as a whole sample and is unable to be segmented into the month-by-month analysis that can be achieved with a scalp hair sample. Okay, to summarise. Psychoactive substances are controlled under the Psychoactive Substances Act, which makes it an offence to produce, supply and possess with the intent to supply psychoactive substances. At Lextox, we recommend hair analysis, as the test can profile use over a number of months as opposed to a number of days that oral fluid and urine testing can provide. And the month-by-month analysis is very useful for showing a trend in use over a period of time. Hair analysis is legally defensible, and the results and expert reports are available for court within 6 working days of receiving the sample into our UK laboratory. And the test is very sensitive and specific, so when we detect a substance, it can only be that substance and it can't be anything else. Currently, we test for 39 different psychoactive substances and 10 spice compounds, and this is expanding. So that concludes today's webinar. If you do have any questions on today's session, please feel free to email them to us via experts@lextox.co.uk. I would like to thank you again for taking the time in joining us for today's session. We do hope to see you again at our next webinar, which is hair drug testing, your 10 most frequently asked questions answered. And this will be taking place on the 21st of November at 10 AM. Thank you.